The Halo MA40 is truly an iconic gun from the Halo universe. When I first got my Nerf MA40, I was blown away at the detail of this blaster, but at the same time I was let down with the stock performance, because out of the package, this thing is not a high performer. I knew I was gonna have to kick it up a notch. Originally, this blaster was shooting around 50 to 60 FPS stock, and that just wasn't enough. This blaster was inaccurate because of the included elite darts, which are just subpar darts. In addition, because of this bullpup design with the mag being back here and the flywheels being here, that dart has to travel this long barrel, and there's a lot of performance loss when doing so. Now, a big misconception people have when looking at Nerf blasters is, oh, it's got a really long barrel. That means it's like a sniper and super accurate. Well, the problem with these is that doesn't really translate well to a flywheeler. Now, a flywheeler essentially has these wheels that spin and the dart is squished through them and it just shoots. So when it comes to accuracy in a flywheeler, for the most part, you want to basically have the flywheels as close to the exit point as possible, because this barrel does not do it any favors. So in conclusion, you will have plus points for style if your barrel is super long on a Nerf blaster, but you will lose points for accuracy. So for this design here, for this long barreled bullpup, I decided to make this a 2-stage. As you can see on the side here, we have an extra stage at the end, and then we have the stock stage here. So basically, the darts come up, fire through this first stage, shoot up to here, and then get a big boost of power and then launch out the barrel. So now the barrel travel is about like that, instead of this entire thing. Now for this build, I wanted it to perform off of a 3S LiPo, so this first stage, I basically left it stock except for the motors. I had to change the motors out for a 3S motor. And in this particular case, I use Valkyries. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to Added Darts using my affiliate link and pick up some of these motors. Because back here we have Valkyries from Added Darts, and up here we have Krakens from Added Darts, which are a very high RPM, very powerful motor that is able to launch that dart in its second stage and get really good performance gains. So essentially what you see here is kind of a ramp up of FPS. And speaking of FPS, let's take a look at some chronograph readings for this blaster. Now, as you can see, it's pretty solid at 150, but it does peak up to 170 here and there. So yeah, that is a massive performance gain from the original, 50 to 60 FPS. Now we're going up to 170. That's like 3, almost 4 times more powerful. So yeah, that's awesome. So if you want to see how I was able to do this build, I do a more in-depth mod guide in a separate video, so check that video out. And if you want to take this thing up to the next level after this, I recommend checking out Project Nerf's video, in which he basically makes this thing full auto. I'll put a link in the description to that video. So let's talk about what I've done in this blaster since the last video. Now, I didn't really describe it in the last video, but I was actually having a horrible short, basically when positive and negative touch somewhere in this blaster. I was really chasing it down. I finally found out that up here in this shell portion, where I was removing material and basically putting this second stage, which, by the way, there's not a lot of material to work with up here. It's pretty narrow, so that's why I had to have this motor cover installed on the side. But there was still too much material in the shell, and what was happening is the positive and negative were pressing up against the motor housing and were actually shorting out through the motor housing. So you always want to keep an eye on that. Basically the leads that come off of your motors, just make sure they never can touch the housing, because you can have some bad problems. I almost destroyed a couple lipos, but fortunately I was able to catch it quick enough. But I was just kept opening it up and checking everything and trying to figure out where the short was, and I just couldn't figure it out until recently. Now, just to be safe, I went through, added some more heat shrink. I even resoldered a lot of the inside of this. And I even did something I don't normally do, and that's take some hot glue and kind of build up some material under the motor so that even if it gets pressed down, there's hot glue there that will kind of act as a barrier. So that's what I had to do on here, especially up here. So I feel a lot more confident now with this design and this build, so hopefully we don't have that issue again. I also decided, you know what, I'm gonna throw a wash on this just because it was very shiny before, and if we look at the Halo MA40, it's actually kind of dull. It's actually very black. I didn't want to go full black with this, so I figured I'd add a little bit of volume, a little bit of depth, and a little breakup of color by just doing some wash and then coming back with some grays and some darker colors, but I think it turned out pretty good. I'm still not done. I'm gonna do a little bit more painting on this, a little bit more detail work. Let me know, does this thing look cool? Is it look a little bit more in line with what you see in the game? One thing I really wanted to talk about is just the overall ergo of this blaster. It just feels really great, even with the stock and the forward grip and just how it seats up. It being a bullpup, so you have quick access to your mag right here, which is really nice. I just really like the design of this. And that brings up a point. Usually when you basically take a blaster from a game or some type of gun in like an actual game, and you basically make it into a real life Nerf blaster, it doesn't always translate well. Like, because when you have a character model holding, an asset in a game, they don't really feel and they don't really have to deal with the ergonomics of it. It just works because it's a game. So it's nice to see that this thing actually is a pretty solid blaster in real life, and I'm a big fan of it. So after getting this all put back together and kind of cleaned up, it was time to check out its accuracy. Now, unfortunately, it is pouring rain, so I set up a little indoor range at about 35 feet and just did some plinking. Now, I will say, I think I'm actually not aligned perfectly with the flywheels. As far as like the placement of this wheel to the placement of this one, I think I'm a little off, because every once in a while, when a dart would go through, it'd kind of hit the side and it would cause it to whirly bird a little bit. So that's unfortunate. It was like 1 in every 6-7 shots, one would whirly bird. So I'm not too crazy about that. I was firing the Adventure Force waffle in all my testing, so maybe I should try this with men guns. I know men guns are a little bit more accurate in a flywheeler, but overall though, I mean, it has high capacity. You can throw the Worker 22s on here. So once you're using Worker 22s, I mean, you got plenty of capacity. But for the most part, I was able to get my tags in. I think this thing would be pretty effective up to probably 50 feet. I don't think you should really be taking sniper shots with this. Maybe if I can switch this over to half darts, maybe we can get some better, more accurate performance, and obviously work on the barrel alignment. Maybe I got some more tweaks to work out there. So that brings us to the future of this blaster. What do I plan on doing with this Nerf Halo MA40? Well, I definitely want to do the full auto kit. So on Project Nerf's video, I'm probably going to follow that and just follow his guide as to how to make this full auto. My only concern is when I go full auto with this thing, I hope it can fire fast enough with this 2-stage. I would hate to have a dart get jammed up in here at this second set of flywheels, because I don't really have a way to access it besides take the whole blaster apart and basically get to that tube in there. So it makes me a little nervous going full auto, firing too fast. If I did do a full auto kind of build with this, it would have to be a lower fire rate. I can't be doing like, I don't know, I'd say about 8 darts a second would be the max I'd go with this thing, which is still pretty fast. It's faster than a lot of stock stuff, but I think that would be the limit for this guy. Another thing I really want to do is basically get an actual ammo counter up here. I think this thing deserves to be a real ammo counter. This fake one is just, I mean, it looks cool and all, but it really needs to be a real one. I don't know if I'd ever go as far as doing select fire for this. I know it does have an actual select fire on the side, but I don't think I'm actually going to go select fire with this guy. Probably just full auto. So final thoughts on the Nerf MA40. I love it. I think it's a really cool blaster. Highly encourage people to try to mod one of these if you can get a hold of one. If you would like to support Flux Labs, then purchase a Nerf MA40 today using our affiliate link in the description. Let me know in the comments section, what upgrade do you think I should do to this next, or leave it like this. I'm curious to see what you all have to say. I want to thank you for watching today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, happy foam flinging.